What is good, guys? It's Nick's Lotus, attempting to start this video for like the third time. I'm going to be going through my favorite commander card out of every set of Magic the Gathering. This has been a long video. It's going to be a long video. Took a lot of work to gather all these cards. I had to look through every single set and find my favorite card out of each one, which took quite a while. So if you don't mind dropping a like, subscribing, all that stuff helps a lot. So how this is going to work, we're going to go from newest set to oldest set. I'm going to just read the card and then go to the next one. We're not going to sit on it for too long. I have a tendency to ramble, as you can see. So we're going to try to avoid that, make this as efficient as a video as possible. It's going to be a longer one, so if you want to grab a snack, a drink, maybe see if we share some of the same favorite cards in common, maybe see if I can show you a card you haven't seen before, possibly. Yeah, let's get into it. Starting off with the newest set, Brothers War, we've got Portal to Phyrexia, which is a 9-drop artifact. When Portal to Phyrexia enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard into the battlefield under your control. It's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. One-way board wipe, reanimate, love it. Next, we've got Dominaria United with Defiler of Dreams. This one kind of shocked me. I was thinking I would pick something different, but then I saw this and I was like, no. Like, I think that's my favorite commander card out of this. 3 and 2 blue for a 4/3 flying. As an additional cost to cast blue permanents, you may pay 2 life once. Those spells cost 1 less blue to cast if you paid life this way. This effect only reduces the amount of blue mana you pay. It can't reduce the amount of anything else. Whenever you cast a blue permanent, draw a card. We got Battle for Baldur's Gate next with Bramble Sovereign, 2 and 2 green for a 4/4. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a green. If you do, that creature's controller creates a token that's a copy of that creature. So it's not just for you. You can do it for other people if you're in a group hug deck. Very flexible card, just super strong. Next, we've got Streets of New Capenna with Unlicensed Hearse. 2 colorless for an XX. You can tap it. Exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. Unlicensed Hearse, power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards exiled with it, and it crews for 2. So it's a Scavenging Ooze on steroids. Very strong card. I got to use it for the first time the other day, and it is definitely one of my new favorite cards. Next, we've got Kamigawa Neon Dynasty with one of the only red cards on this list, Atsushi the Blazing Sky. This thing's just really, really good. Atsushi is 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 flying trample. When Atsushi the Blazing Sky dies, choose one. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards, or you create 3 treasure tokens. So I will definitely take both of those options. 4-drop, 4/4 flying trample. I just love Atsushi. It's very, very strong. Next, we've got Innistrad Crimson Vow with by invitation only. This is probably my new favorite board wipe. 3 and 2 white for a sorcery. Choose a number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures. I run this in my token decks because a lot of the time you can have more than 13 creatures out. Next, we've got Innistrad Midnight Hunt with Morbid Opportunist. 2 and a black for a 1/3. Whenever 1 or more creatures die, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. It can trigger during opponent's turns. You end up getting a lot of card draw off this thing because creatures are going to die in EDH. So next, we've got Adventures into the Forgotten Realm with Old Gnawbone. 5 and 2 green for a 7/7 flying. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. A creature, not even Old Gnawbone. So you can play this guy, swing with other guys, create tokens, play another thing. Very good. Old Gnawbone is extremely strong. Up next, we got Modern Horizons 2 with Dam. 2 black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated, or overload it for 2 and 2 white. So it's a removal spell. It's a go for the throat, essentially, at its worst. It's a Wrath of God at its best. So it's pretty good. Sorcery speed, keep that in mind, but still very strong. Next, we've got Strixhaven School of Mages with Sedgemoor Witch. 2 and a black for a 3/2 menace. Ward, pay 3 life. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with, when this creature dies, gain a life. I love getting benefits from just playing Magic. Those are probably my favorite cards. And this one's just like, hey, you're going to play instants and sorceries. You're going to get creatures to chump block with. If you do that, you're going to gain some life here and there. You have a 3/2 menace. You get bodies on the ground. You get more stuff to sack to your sack outlets. Very good. Up next is Kaldheim with Burning Rune Demon. 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 flying. When Burning Room Demon enters the battlefield, you may search your library for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon that have different names. If you do, reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them and puts it into your hand, and the other one goes into your graveyard. So if you're in a Reanimator deck, again, very good. Even if you're not in a Reanimator deck and you just need like one of 2 options, this thing will tutor out the option and give you a 6/6 body. It's super good. Up next, we've got Zendikar Rising with Feldar's Retreat, baby. I love Feldar's Retreat. This is one of my favorite cards, obviously. 3 and a white for an enchantment with Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can either create a 2/2 Cat Beast, or you can put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and they all get Vigilance until end of turn. Super good. Up next is Jumpstart 2020 with Kel's Fight Fixer. 2 and 2 black for a 4/3 menace. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may pay 1 hybrid Dimir. If you do, draw a card. And then you can pay 1 colorless. And then you can pay 1 colorless, sacrifice a creature. Kel's Fight Fixer gains indestructible until end of turn. Kel's is just really good. Up next, we got Core Set 2021 with Sublime Epiphany. Sublime Epiphany is 4 and 2 blue for an instant. Choose 1 or more, counter target spell, counter target activated or triggered ability, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, target player draws a card. You can pick all those. Next, we got Ikoria, Lair of the Behemoth with Luminous Broodmoth. 2 and 2 white for a 3/4 flying. Whenever a creature you control with flying dies, or without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. So not only does it make all your stuff come back if it dies, it comes back better. Next, we've got Theros Beyond Death with Woe Strider. 2 and a black for his 3/2. When Woe Strider enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 white goat creature token. Sacrifice another creature, scry 1. You can escape it from your graveyard for 3 and 2 black. And Woe Strider escapes with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. I don't even think I've ever escaped Woe Strider once. I think it's just I play it as a Viscera Seer that gives me a goat. Up next, we've got Throne of Eldraine with Emry, one of my favorite commanders. 2 and a blue. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When Emry, Lurker of the Loch, enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. You can tap Emry, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. I like Emry a lot. Up next, we got Core Set 2020 with Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge is 4 for an artifact. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an artifact card or a colorless non-land card. You can tap it, pay 1 life, exile the top card of your library. Yeah, if you're in an artifact deck, this is just insane. Like the Emry deck, a lot of stuff. I'm not going to try to think of any off the top of my head because I'm going to look like an idiot. But super good in artifact decks. Up next is Modern Horizons with another one of my favorite commanders, Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. Sisay is 2 and a white for a 2/2. Sisay Weatherlight Captain gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. And you can play Wooburg, search your library for a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisay's power. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Up next is War of the Spark with Bolas's Citadel. Bolas's Citadel is 3 and 3 black for a legendary artifact. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. And then you can tap it, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. Ravnica Allegiance with Priest of Forgotten Gods is up next. 1 and a black for a 1/2. You can tap it. Sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add 2 black to your mana pool and draw a card. Super good. Priest of the Forgotten Gods is like one of my favorite sack outlets. Up next is Guilds of Ravnica with Doom Whisperer. 3 and 2 black for a 6/6 flying trample. Pay 2 life, surveil 2. Yeah, insane. If you're in a Reanimator deck, this is pretty crazy. You get to just fill your graveyard with as much stuff as you're willing to pay life for. So we got Core Set 2019 with Mentor of the Meek. 2 and a white for a 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 mana. If you do, draw a card. Okay, so up next we have Rivals of Ixalan with Tetsamok Primal Death. 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 Death Touch. Pay 1 black. Reveal Tetsamok Primal Death from your hand. Put a prey counter on target creature. Activate this ability only during your turn. When Tetsumak enters the battlefield, destroy each creature your opponent controls with a prey counter on it. You can do this as many times as you want. You can do the reveal to put a counter on something as many times as you want, and then drop it to kill all those things. Up next, we got Ixalan with Boneyard Parley. Get it? Because they're pirates. 5 and 2 black for a sorcery. Exile up to 5 target creature cards from graveyards. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put all cards from the pile of your choice onto the battlefield, and the rest into their owner's graveyards. Up next, we got Hour of Devastation with Mirage Mirror. Mirage Mirror is 3 colorless for an artifact. Mirage, you can pay 2. Mirage Mirror becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn. This thing's just strong. Turning this thing into anything on the board, essentially. Yeah, just really good. Extremely good card. Up next, we got Amonkhet with Prowling Serpopard. I love stuff that makes my stuff be able to be played. So, 1 and 2 green for a 4/3. Prowling Serpopard can't be countered. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Yeah, sure. Up next, we've got Aether Revolt with Lifecrafter's Bestiary. 3 colorless for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may pay 1 green. If you do, draw a card. Sure. Beast Whisperer, except you have to pay a green, but it's an artifact, and you get to scry 1. I think I do that every time. Up next, we've got Kaladesh with Gonti, Lord of Luxury. 2 and 2 black for a 2/3 Death Touch. When Gonti, Lord of Luxury, enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Put one of those cards face down in exile. Then put the rest on the bottom of that library in any order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were any mana of any type to cast it. Up next, we've got Eldritch Moon with Sigarda's Aid. 1 white for an enchantment. You may cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash. Okay. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to a creature you control. This thing's insane. If you're in the equipment deck, this has to be one of the most powerful cards that you can possibly run. But what do I know? Shadows over Innistrad next with Anguished Unmaking. Anguished Unmaking is 1, a white, and a black for an instant. Exile target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life. Just solid removal. Oath of the Gatewatch is next with Kalitas, Trader of Get. 2 and 2 black for a 3/4 lifelink. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. For 4 mana, that's already insane. Going back to the I like cards that just benefit me from playing the game. Creatures are going to die. And for 4 mana, just as early as turn 2 or 3, just getting 2/2s every time something dies seems insane. And then you can pay 2 and a black, sacrifice another vampire or zombie, put 2 1/1 counters on Kalitas, Trader of Get. And like I've said before, I don't like 1/1 counters unless they have evasion or lifelink. So I love this card. Well, we're supposed to have a Battle for Zendikar card, Smothering Abomination. So, if you know what Smothering Abomination is, awesome. If you don't, I will edit it into the video right here. Smothering Abomination. Is 2 black for a 4/3 devoid flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. Extremely solid. Up next, we've got Magic Origins with Evolutionary Leap. Evolutionary Leap is 1 and a green for an enchantment. You can pay 1 green, sacrifice a creature, reveal cards from the top of your library until you hit another creature, put that card into your hand, and the rest of the cards at the bottom of your library in any order. So, again, great sack outlet. It replaces your tokens with bigger creatures. If something gets targeted by an opponent, you just sack it in response and replace it. Evolutionary Leap is insane. Up next is Dragons of Tarkir with Profaner of the Dead. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 exploit. When Profaner of the Dead exploits a creature, return to their owner's hands all creatures your opponents control with toughness less than the exploited creature's toughness. If you need a Cyclonic Rift in a creature deck that's budget, Profaner of the Dead, definitely. Fate Reforged is next with Shamanic Revelation. Shamanic Revelation is 3 and 2 green for a sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control. Awesome. And you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. I've gained like 16 life off this thing before. Drawn like 7 to 8 cards off of it for 5, which is, I mean, in green, that's very good. Up next is Khans of Tarkir with one of my favorite commanders of all time, Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Sidisi is 1, a black, a green, and a blue for a 3/3. When Sidisi Brood Tyrant enters the battlefield or attacks, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. When 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. Self-mill, Reanimator, tokens, getting benefited for just playing the game. Gotta love Sidisi. Up next is Magic 2015 with a bit of a meme card, a bit of a pet card now. But who cares? We got hot soup. If you watch the stream, you know how much I like hot soup. I love me some soup. If you look at my salt levels in my heart, you know I like soup. You know I like soup. Look forward to that. Hot soup is 1 for an equipment that equips for 3. Equipped creature can't be blocked. When equipped creature is dealt damage, destroy it. Not very good. It just makes a creature unblockable, which, I mean, I love. And I like soup, so yeah. Up next is Conspiracy with Marchesa the Black Rose. Marchesa the Black Rose is 1, a blue, a black, and a red for a 3/3. Dethrone. Whenever this creature attacks the player with the most life or is tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Other creatures you control have Dethrone. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Marchesa is fantastic. Since she came out, she's a community favorite, and that's for a reason. She was extremely fun. Up next is Journey into Nyx with Dictate of Erebos, 3 and 2 black for an enchantment with Flash. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. It's pretty much just a Grave Pact with Flash that's a little bit easier to cast. So yeah. Up next we got Born of the Gods with Courser of Kruphix. This was a very popular standard card, but it's also extremely good in Commander. Courser of Kruphix is 1 and 2 green for a 2/4. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card. Whenever a land card enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So again, getting benefited for playing the game. Get those bad draws off the top of your deck. Extremely good card. Up next is Theros with Whip of Erebos. Whip of Erebos is 2 and 2 black for a legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have lifelink. You can pay 2 and 2 black to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gets haste until end of turn. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If the card would leave the battlefield, you exile it as well. Activate this ability only as a sorcery, so you can't do it during other people's turns. This card's insane. Giving your whole board lifelink already is like, that's really good, and that'll bring you back in a game for sure. But being able to whip fat creatures back to your into play with haste until end of turn that also have lifelink, I mean, yeah. Next we got M14 with Strionic Resonator. Strionic Resonator is 2 for an artifact. You can pay 2 and tap it. Copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So if your commander has any kind of triggered ability, if your deck's based around triggered abilities, I love Strionic Resonator. I got some pushback from the community a little bit with this card. A lot of people were like, this card's not very good. I love this card. I don't see why doubling your commander's abilities is bad. But yeah, I really like it. It's one of my favorite cards. Up next, we've got, let me make sure I get these set right here, Dragon's Maze. 2 with Notion Thief. 2, a blue and a black for a 3/1 flash. If an opponent would draw a card except for the first card he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw instead. Someone plays a Mind Spring for 7. You go, I want a Notion Thief, and go ahead and draw 7, and you draw nothing. Up next, we got Gate Crash with Master Biomancer. Master Biomancer is 2, a green and a blue for a 2/4. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to Master Biomancer's power. So by default, your things are going to be 2 +1/+1 counters bigger. It's not a static Anthem effect, so it's more permanent than like playing an Anthem that'll give your board +2/+2. And if you can manage to buff him up, your stuff can get huge. Up next is Return to Ravnica with Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay is a green and a black for an instant. Abrupt Decay can't be countered by spells or abilities. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. This thing gets rid of a lot of problem cards. It gets rid of Boots. It gets rid of Mana Ramp. It gets rid of Thassa's Oracle. It gets rid of, I mean, like, hey, they're probably going to win with it anyway, but you know what I'm saying. Very good. Next, we got Magic 2013, or 2012. Nope, 2013. I was right. With Disciple of Bolas, 3 and a black for a 2/1. When Disciple of Bolas enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. Really good. Extremely good card. I know a lot of people are like, you need a creature in play. This will be a dead card a lot of the time. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But when it pays off, or if you have a commander that kind of will guarantee, like if you have a Dritz deck that'll spit out a 4/1 lion with it or something, you know what I mean? Like where you have a guaranteed, like I can do this into this. It's very solid, and me and a lot of my play group get away with running this like every time. Every time someone plays it, I'm like, damn. We got Avacyn Restored with Blood Artist. 1 and a black for a 0/1. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 and you gain 1. I don't know how it took me like 6 years to realize that it was any creature. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Up next, we've got Dark Ascension with Vault of the Archangel. Vault of the Archangel is a land that you can tap for a colorless or a waste, and you can pay 2, a white, and a black, tap it. Creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. Essentially, pay 2, a black, and a white, tap it. You come back into the game from near death, and your opponents lose all their creatures or take a shit ton to the face. Up next, we've got Innistrad with Blasphemous Act. One of the only other red cards on the list. I think it is the only other red card on the list. Blasphemous Act is 8 and a red. It costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. It's a sorcery. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. Very good. This, a lot of the time, is just 1 red to wipe the board, which, compare that to... Scoot this back. Compare that to most board wipes. Yeah. That's pretty good value, I'd say. Core set 2012, we've got Swiftfoot Boots. 2 colorless for an artifact equipment. It equips for 1. Equip creature has hexproof and haste. Yeah. A classic. It's a very good card. We've got New Phyrexia with Shieldred Whispering One. Shieldred is 5 and 2 black for a 6/6 Swamp Walk. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sure. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. Again, absolutely. This is a extremely powerful reanimator card. All that. Up next, we've got Mirrodin Besieged with Hero of Bladehold. This one's not as strong anymore, but it is just one of my favorite cards of all time, so I had to put it on here. 2 and 2 white for a 3/4 Battle Cry. Whenever Hero of Bladehold attacks, put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So you can stack these, obviously, to where you get the 1/1s first, then you get the Battle Cry trigger, so you're getting 7 power for 4, and then you're also buffing up the rest of your board. I run this in my Layla deck, and it overperforms. It's extremely good in there. One of my favorite cards. Up next, we've got Scars of Mirrodin with Asceticism. Asceticism is 3 and 2 green for an enchantment. Creatures you control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control, so creatures you control have hexproof, and you can pay 1 and a green to regenerate target creature, which is extremely good. Anyway, next we got Magic 2011 with Fauna Shaman. Fauna Shaman is 1 and a green for a 2/2. You can pay 1 green, tap it, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Super good. Graveyard decks, again, reanimator decks, you can dump some fat creatures into the graveyard, tutor up some new fat creatures to dump in the graveyard. Even if you're not in the reanimator deck and you just need certain tool pieces, Fauna Shaman's great. I think any creature-based deck, Fauna Shaman's really good. Really good. Next, we've got Rise of Eldrazi. Do you want to take a guess? Want to take a guess at what my favorite card is out of this set? You want to guess? Is it Emrakul? Is it Emrakul in Commander? Is it Emrakul? Is it fucking Emrakul? No, it's not Emrakul. It's Ulamog. Because Emrakul's illegal, guys. Ulamog the Infinite Gyre is 11 colorless for a 10/10. Whenever you cast Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, destroy target permanent. Annihilator 4. Ulamog is indestructible. When Ulamog is put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle your graveyard into your library. What else do you want? You can't get anything else. Up next is Worldwake with Avenger of Zendikar. Avenger of Zendikar is 5 and 2 green for a 5/5. When Avenger of Zendikar enters the battlefield, put a 0/1 green plant creature token into play for each land you control. So you're guaranteed 6 to 7 of these things when you play it. And it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on each plant you control. So all those things become 1/2s, 2/3s, 3/4s, 4/5s. The more lands you play. And even if you don't play any lands, you have infinite chump blockers on board, which is always good. Up next, we got Zendikar which is so weird just saying Zendikar, by the way. This is one of my favorite sets of all time. But after having like Zendikar Allegiance, like Worldwake, Zendikar Awakened, or whatever the hell it's called, and now coming back to this one and just calling it Zendikar feels kind of weird. But yeah, next we have Zendikar with Lotus Cobra. Lotus Cobra is 1 and a green for a 2/1. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Super good. It just doubles the land you play for a turn. Mana ramps you out the ass. There's a lot of 2-drop mana rocks out there now, so this thing's not worth nearly as much as it was. I think it's a couple bucks now. And you also have the chance to play multiple lands each turn, which makes this thing even better than some of those. Yeah, very good card. Next, we got Magic 2010 with Sign in Blood. Sign in Blood is 2 black for a sorcery. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. This is a classic black card draw. It's one of the best in the game. Yeah. Next, we have Alara Reborn with Dauntless Escort. I haven't seen this card played in a while, and I really miss it. 1, a green and a white for a 3/3. Sacrifice Dauntless Escort. Creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn. I just like this thing. And I'm sorry if I'm out of breath, guys. I've had the worst cough the last few days. But that's not your problem. Don't burden yourself with that, all right? That's not your problem. Next is Conflux with Path to Exile. Path to Exile is 1 white for an instant. Remove target creature card from the game. Its controller may search their library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. One of the best removal spells ever made. Next is Shards of Alara. Elspeth Knight Errant is 2 white for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. You can +1, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. Sure. +1 again. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. Sure. -8. For the rest of the game, artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands you control are indestructible. So this is the original Emblem planeswalker. Up next, we've got Eventide with Bloom Tender. 1 and a green for a 1/1. You can tap Bloom Tender. For each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. This is probably still one of the... sure, if we're not including like whatever $80, $100 cards, I think this is like the best 2-drop mana rock you can buy. I think it's sitting around $8 to $10 still. But I think that's still like a super good deal for how good this card is. Up next, we've got Shadowmoor with Cauldron of Souls. Cauldron of Souls is 5 colorless for an artifact. You can tap it, choose any number of target creatures. Those creatures gain persist until end of turn. So what's cool about this is you can use it on your own stuff in response to board wipes and stuff to get your stuff back, but you can use it on other people's stuff too. So if someone board wipes, you can be like, hey, if I save your best thing, and your best thing, are y'all going to leave me alone for a turn? Very good card. Next, we've got Morningtide with Revelark. This is one I forgot about. Revelark is 4 and a white for a 4/3. Flying. When Revelark leaves play, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to play. And then has Evoke for 5 and a white. Next, we've got Lorwyn with 1,000-Year Elixir. 1,000-Year Elixir is 3 colorless for an artifact. You may play the activated abilities of creatures you control as though they add haste, and then you can pay 1, tap it to untap target creature. Really good. If you have a tap deck, if you have a commander that's based around tapping itself, 1,000 Years is just extremely good. And then next we've got 10th edition with Seedborn Muse. Seedborn Muse is 3 and 2 green. Untap all your creatures, untap all your permanents during each player's untap step. Yeah, why not? Next, we've got Future Sight with Cloud Key. Cloud Key is 3 colorless for an artifact. As Cloud Key comes into play, choose artifact, creature, enchantment, instant, or sorcery. Spells you play of the chosen type cost 1 less to play. Super good. Up next, we have my favorite commander of all time, out of Planar Chaos, Teneb the Harvester. 3 black, green, white for a 6/6 flying. When Teneb the Harvester deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a black. If you do, return target creature card from a graveyard into play under your control. You can only do this once. If you give him double strike, you can do it twice. But it's not super strong. I can sit here trying to like rep Teneb and like boost him up, but he's not super strong. But he is one of my favorite commanders. He is my favorite commander of all time. Up next is Cold Snap with Mishra's Bauble. Mishra's Bauble is a 0-drop artifact that you can tap and sack to look at a card, or look at the top card of target player's library, and then at the beginning of that player's upkeep, you draw a card. So it's a 0-drop draw a card in decks like Emery. It's extremely good. And then we've got Dissension up next with Momir Vig Simic Visionary. Momir's insane. He's 3, a green, and a blue for a 2/2. Whenever you play a green creature, you get to search your library for a... let me make sure I get this right here. Yep. Whenever you play a green creature, you get to search your library for a creature and then put it on top of your deck. And whenever you play a blue creature, you get to reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a creature, it goes into your hand. So, if you play Simic creatures, if you play creatures that are both green and blue, you can stack those in whatever order you want, so you can tutor and reveal and guarantee get a creature. So this creature, essentially, every time you play a Simic creature, you get to tutor up a creature and put it into your hand, which is extremely good. Up next, we've got Guild Pact with my first card I ever pulled, Wormweaver Coil. It's not even that good. It's just my first card I ever pulled. I felt wrong not putting it as my favorite commander card on this list. Wormweaver Coil is 4 and 2 green for enchant green creature. Enchant creature gets +6/+6. You can play 3 green, sacrifice Wormweaver Coil, put a 6/6 green worm into play. Up next, we got Ravnica City of Guilds. I had a hard time picking on this one, so I just did the signets. I did the 4 signets we got in this set: Boros, Dimir, Golgari, Selesnya. Yeah, signets are just so breaking to the commander format that I think they had to be on there. Up next, we've got 9th edition, which I guess I picked Seedborn Muse again. I was kind of concerned I did that twice, but Seedborn Muse again. Fuck it. It's that good of a card. We already did Seedborn Muse, so. Next, we got Saviors of Kamigawa, Freed from the Real. 1 blue for enchant creature, pay 1 blue, tap enchant creature, pay 1 blue, untap enchant creature. Again, if you have a tap commander, any kind of like tap deck going on, Freed from the Real is one of the best cards you can run. Up next is Betrayers of Kamigawa with Final Judgment. 4 and 2 white for a sorcery. Remove all creatures from the game. That's a pretty good board wipe. Up next is Champions of Kamigawa with Kakusho the Evening Star. 4 and 2 black for a 5/5 flying. When Kakusho the Evening Star is put into the graveyard from play, each opponent loses 5 life. You gain life equal to the amount of life lost this way. Extremely good. Everyone loses 5. You gain 15. Up next is Fifth Dawn with Eternal Witness. Eternal Witness is 1 and 2 green for a 2/1. When Eternal Witness comes into play, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Classic EDH card. Speaking of classic EDH card, we have Darksteel with Skullclamp. Skullclamp is 1 for an equipment that equips for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. When equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. If you're in a token deck, if your commander makes 1/1s like Shorkai again or Rise, you're going to want to run this because you're going to get a ton of card advantage. Up next is Mirrodin with Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves is 2 for an artifact equipment. It equips for 0. Equipped creature has haste, and it has Shroud. So, 0 to give something haste and Shroud. Pretty good. 8th edition is next with Defense Grid. Defense Grid is 2 for an artifact. During each player's turn, each other player's spells cost 3 more to play. So counter spells, removal, flash, any kind of other person's turn shenanigans, cut it out. All right, stop that shit. Scourge. We got Carrion Feeder. 1 black for a 1/1. Carrion Feeder can't block. Sacrifice a creature. Put a 1/1 counter on Carrion Feeder. It's just a sack outlet. It's just a pretty decent sack outlet. If the time comes where you have something like Hot Soup on this guy and he's unblockable and you're just like, fuck it, I'll sack my whole board and hit you for 20 and see if we can end the game here. It's always funny. But just as a creature sack outlet that has no cost that you can just keep doing, it's pretty good. Next, we've got Legions with Caller of the Claw. Caller of the Claw is 2 and a green for a 2/2. You may play Caller of the Claw anytime you can play an instant that has Flash. When Caller of the Claw comes into play, put a 2/2 green bear creature token into play for each non-token creature put into the graveyard from play this turn. 3 mana to recover this well from a board wipe is pretty crazy. Next, we've got Onslaught with Riptide Laboratory. This thing has proven itself time and time again. Like, actually, every time this thing's played in our commander group, I'm like, okay, forget about it. Try to target their commander. Boop. I'm gonna Riptide it back to my hand. Fuck. especially in Emery. It protects Emery as well as giving you another trigger of her ETB, which is just extremely good. Up next, we got Judgment with Hunting Grounds. Hunting Grounds is a green and a white for an enchantment. As long as you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may cheat a creature from your hand directly into play. This card and another card on the list, I have a very clear memory because I thought this, I love it. I think it's one of the funniest things. When I was like, let's see, how old would I have been? Ooh, probably, let's get some net cracks in the chat. Probably like 14, 15. I go into our card shop and I'm looking through our like bulk box. Like we have a box of bulk rares that are like $1 or less. And I come across Hunting Grounds and I come across another card. And I'll tell you what that card is here in a minute because we're going to be coming up on it here shortly. Actually really shortly. So I found these 2 cards and I was like, are these supposed to be in here? I remember asking like, these seem actually good. Are these supposed to be in here? And he looks them up and he's like, yeah, Hunting Grounds, 75 cents. Looks up the other one. Yeah, this is 50 cents. He's like, you're good. And I literally looked these up and Hunting Grounds I think is sitting between like $8 to $12 now. And I was like, makes sense. And the other one's sitting between $8 and $10. So that's a little moment that I liked because I was like, that was young me, like tapping into the current day meta and like understanding what some good cards were. And I think back to how strong my original Teneb deck was because I ran this and that other card in the Teneb deck. And the old meta, my Teneb deck was so strong. Like it was actually a super powerful deck. But it wouldn't fly. It wouldn't fly nowadays, which kind of sucks. But in the traditional sense, it wouldn't fly nowadays. In our play group, I'll shit on some kids with Teneb, all right? And if I run enough removal and board wipes and responses, you can kind of make anything work. You know what I mean? You can kind of make anything work if you have an answer for everything happening. Come on. There we go. Yeah, that's my motto. If you have enough answers for stuff, you can make anything work. Up next, we got Torment with Crozen Restorer. We'll put it on the screen. Crozen Restorer is 2 and a green for a 1/2. You can tap it to untap target land. If you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, kind of like Hunting Grounds, you can tap it to untap, I think, 3 lands. Yeah, 3 lands, not 2. You don't get a 1 upgrade, you get a 2 upgrade. Which, again, was in my Teneb deck. It was a 3-drop that untapped 3 lands, which was really good. So I could turn 1 whatever card into Hunting Grounds into Crozen Restorer. And it was like, okay. And then we start mulching. We start doing all this stuff to mill ourselves. And it used to be really strong. Crozen Restorer, though, still run it. Still one of my favorite mana ramp cards. It's one of the only 3-drop mana ramp cards that I still run. Like Coalition Relic, Crozen Restorer, and sometimes Command Sphere. Like in Emery, I run Command Sphere just because it's nice to get the sack and then play it again. But yeah, that's about it. Up next, we've got Odyssey with Chamber of Manipulation. I completely forgot this card existed. 2 and 2 blue for an enchant land. Enchant land has tap, discard a card from your hand, gain control of target creature until end of turn. That seems really good. Like, someone has a OP ability that they keep activating. Someone has a creature that's like, oh, that thing's swinging for a ton. That thing right there, I could really use that because I have a sack outlet. You have sack outlets, start stealing stuff, sacking them. It just seems really good. Like in my Sidisi deck, it's a Reanimator deck, it's a sack outlet deck, and it's a token deck. So this seems amazing in there because I'm like, enchant a land, start filling my graveyard with the cards out of my hand. It doesn't trigger Sidisi, but it does give me cards in my graveyard to reanimate. Start stealing opponents' creatures, sacking them to my sack outlets, getting like 3-for-1s off. Like, it seems really good. This seems like an extremely good card in Sidisi and in Alayla. I didn't think about Alayla. This will be really strong in there as well. Up next, we've got Apocalypse with Phyrexian Arena. Phyrexian Arena is 1 and 2 black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. This is another one kind of like Strionic Resonator. I got a little bit of heat from it when I said that I liked this card. Some people were like, it's not good anymore. Phyrexian Arena's slow. It's not good. It's like Bitter Blossom. You're going to kill yourself with it. Okay. It's like I run it in Alayla, where I have a lot of life gain and like Whips of Erebos and Alayla herself and stuff. I have a brain. It's okay. Phyrexian Arena is very good. 7th edition, we've got Wild Growth. Wild Growth is 1 green for an enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green mana to their mana pool. Very good. 1 mana to get 1 mana. I'd play that. Up next, we got Plane Shift with Eldrami's Call. Eldrami's Call is a green and a white for an instant. Search your library for a creature card, reveal that card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. I love the fact that this doesn't put it on top of your library. Isn't that kind of weird? Like, because it's an instant. Like, it's like when it's an instant, I'm like, oh, it's going to put it on top of my library so I can do it at the end of someone's turn, draw it at the beginning of my turn. And it's like, no, Eldrami's Call is just really good. Like, you can tutor up a flash creature with this during someone's turn. Like, oh, I need my Venser. I'm going to Eldrami's Call, my Venser Shapeshifter, drop it, bounce your thing back. I mean, that seems really good. I mean, it is really good. Doesn't seem really good. I mean, that shit is really good. Up next, we've got Invasion with Aura Shards. Aura Shards is 1, a green, and a white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you may destroy an artifact or enchantment. Yeah. All your creatures are just naturalizes on top of being the creature. Again, benefit me for just playing the game. Love it. Speaking of benefit me for playing the game, we have got Prophecy with Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study is 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you draw a card unless they pay 1 mana. So all their spells cost an additional 1 if they don't want you to draw cards from them, which a lot of people don't. So you're going to end up drawing quite a bit of cards with this, which is awesome. Next, we've got Nemesis with Predator Flagship. Again, this is kind of a, what's the word? A pet card. Just because I remember this when I was like, I think I was probably 10. When did Nemesis come out? 2000? Oh, okay, no. Yeah, no, I was 2. Yeah, okay. Well, I was probably 10, though, because I started playing around Ravnica. So it was probably around when I was 10. I saw this in someone's binder, and I remember just being like, whoa. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I didn't really have much, like, power gauging on the scale at that point. So I was just like, I can give all my creatures flying? And then someone's like, well, yeah, but you can also give their creatures flying and kill it. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, how is this not $1 billion? And they're like, well, it costs 5 and their abilities cost a lot. And I'm like, who cares what I'm running to Neb. Who cares what they cost? Like, fun card. I still like this card a lot. Up next, we got Mercadian Mask with Foster. Foster is 2 and 2 green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card and put it into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. So it turns on Threshold pretty easily because it's going to put all those cards into your graveyard if you care about that. I mean, I kind of do. There's been like 3 Threshold cards on this list. But more importantly, it turns all your creatures dying into replacement creatures, which is really good. Again, you could just run the Evolutionary Leap, which essentially is the same thing, except better. You can just sack it in response to get a creature. I still really like Foster. I think redundancy is good in Magic. Having multiple ways to do the same thing is super important. So the logic of, like, this is better than that, so take out that, doesn't make sense to me. I run both because I want to be doing it. I want to be doing that thing. So Foster's fantastic. Next, we've got the Starter Decks 1999s with Grim Tutor. I didn't realize this was the first time Grim Tutor came out. 1 and 2 black for a sorcery. Search your library for any card and put that card into your hand. You lose 3 life. Just a really good tutor, especially in Commander. Urza's Destiny is next with Thran Dynamo. I still like Thran Dynamo. I still think this card's really good. You end up losing out on 1 mana because you can still play it, tap it the turn it comes out. You lose out on 1 mana for 1 turn to gain 3 mana the next turn. I'll do that, 100%. 100%. Like, turn 5, I have 4 mana. But turn 6, I have 9. You know? Like, sure. Like, I really, really enjoy Thran Dynamo, especially with the amount of colorless mana rocks I run, because you chain this thing almost every time into something else. Thran Dynamo into Boots, Thran Dynamo into Soul Ring, Thran Dynamo into this Mind Stone I just drew and draw a card off the Mind Stone. Thran Dynamo into Command Sphere, draw a card. A lot of the time you end up just chaining this thing, which makes it super, super good. Up next, we've got Portal 3 Kingdoms with Borrowing 100,000 Arrows. I love this card. I love the name. I think it's a powerful card. It's one of my favorites. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Let me take a drink here. Sorry about that, guys. Ooh. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. For each tapped creature your opponent has in play, you draw a card. So if you're in a creature-heavy meta, or you're just... I still think it's kind of worth running it because you're going to come across creature decks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you're going to draw a ton of cards off this thing. Your opponents, too. It's not even target opponent. Yeah, 100%. This thing is so good in Commander because you literally just wait for a rotation around the table. That guy swings with 2 things. That guy swings with 1. That guy has a token deck that swings with 4. You're like, oh, I draw 7 cards for 3 mana. Pretty good. Obviously, it'd be better if it was an instant, clearly. Oh, wow. That's genius. I never even read the, flavor text and looked at the art. Koing Ming and Lu Su tricked Y troops into shooting over 100,000 arrows at them to later use against the Wei at the Red Cliffs. They literally made the sides of their boats look like people standing there so that people would shoot arrows at their boats, and then the arrows get stuck in the straw, and then they pull all the arrows out, and then they have 100,000 new bullets, essentially, to use in war. That is so cool. That's my favorite shit. Okay, sorry. Geeking out a little bit. That's super cool art. I really like that. Next, we got 6th edition with Relentless Assault. Relentless Assault is 2 and 2 red for a sorcery. Untap all creatures you control. There's an additional combat phase followed by this one. You just get 2 combats for 4 mana. If you're in a creature deck, this is a lot of people's win con in a lot of their decks. It's a super good card. Next is Urza's Legacy with Mother of Runes. Mother of Runes is 1 white for a 1/1. You can tap it. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. This card is definitely one of my favorites of all time, just because of how awkward it makes all your opponents' plays. Like, your opponent's like, I have a Doomblade, and I want to kill your big thing over there, but I can't. I'll have to use 2 kill spells, because even if I target Mother of Runes, she just gives herself protection from black, and I'll have to use a second one. So yeah, making your opponents have to use 2 kill spells to even do anything to your board just by playing a 1-drop. I mean, yeah. Up next is Urza's Saga with Greater Good. 2 and 2 green for an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. Draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Then choose and discard 3 cards. So good. This was seriously one of the best cards in my Teneb deck because I would cheat a fat thing into play, swing with it, sack that huge thing like a Shieldred, a 7/7, 8/8, and then you draw 8 cards. You discard 3 of those, which you're in a Reanimator deck. I'm completely fine with discarding shit. Discard an Avenger's End card. Discard a Burning Rune Demon. Discard a Runescar Demon. Just all this dope shit, and it's just nothing but value. It's nothing but value. If you're in a Reanimator deck that has green, Greater Good's one of my favorite cards. It's so good. Next is Portal's Second Age with Temporal Manipulation. Temporal Manipulation is 3 and 2 blue for a sorcery. You take another turn after this one. Like, the Relentless Assault is 4 to take an extra combat. This one's 5 to take an extra turn. So, I mean, pretty good. Like, and this set was a little weird. This one was a little bit harder to find a card that I actually personally like a lot. Because I don't really use extra turn cards all that much. Next, we've got Exodus with Shattering Pulse. I really like Shattering Pulse. I don't see this played ever. It's like literally 10 cents right now, and I have no idea why. It's 1 in a red to destroy target artifact. It's a shatter that you can pay 3 additional mana to put it back into your hand afterwards. You know, like, so in my meta, Acidic Slime is still played, and it almost always gets an artifact. Of course, there's times where I'm like, that land's annoying, or that enchantment's way too strong. 100%. I'm not saying that never happens. But 80 to 90% of the time, it's an artifact. And this is the same mana cost as an Acidic Slime. It's not a 2/2 with Death Touch, but it's reusable. You literally just can keep paying 5 to blow up artifacts, which is, to me, I think that's really strong. Like, I maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's really strong. I think it's a really powerful card. And it's one of my favorites. Next, we've got Stronghold with Mulch. Speaking of one of my favorites, I didn't realize Mulch was this old. I thought Mulch came out in Innistrad. So this was a pleasant surprise to get some new art for this. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library to all players. Put any of those cards that are lands into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Put the stuff you want in a Reanimator deck in your hand, and put the stuff you want in your graveyard in a Reanimator deck in your graveyard. Like, why not? Very good. Next, we've got Tempest. So these were out of order. Now we've got Tempest. With Reanimate. Let me redo that real quick just so we can get the appropriate cut for the video. Up next, we've got Tempest with Reanimate. Reanimate is 1 black for a sorcery. Put target creature card from any graveyard into play under your control. Lose life equal to the creature's casting cost. For 1 black. Yeah. Like that. This card is why decks are called Reanimator decks. It's because it's the strongest Reanimator spell you can get your hands on. It is extremely good. One black to get any creature out of any graveyard. It doesn't even have to be yours. In a 40 life game, all you have to do is lose life. 100%. 100%. Next, we've got Weatherlight with Fervor. Fervor is 2 and a black for an enchantment. All creatures you control are unaffected by summoning sickness. 3 to give everything you control haste is really good. Concordant Crossroads is not on this list, and that's because these are my favorite commander cards. I've never had a Concordant Crossroads. It's not a card I'm super interested in getting. It's pricier than a lot of cards I'm interested in getting. And Fervor, it does essentially the same thing. And I know you combo players are screaming at the screen right now. Trust me, I understand. You're like, it's not the same thing. I can win turn 2 with Concordant. I get it. Sorry about that. My pop filter's fucking up. I get it. But Fervor, in my play group, how I play Magic, why I like playing it, Fervor is my card. So, I really like Fervor. And next we've got Portal. Just the original OG Portal with Mobilize, which is insane. Mobilize is 1 green to untap all your creatures. Sorcery speed. Pretty wild. If you're in a deck that is an untapped deck, think about this. I run a Londo, so I'll put him on the screen. Which way? This way? Alondo. That's one of my commanders. And the whole deck is based around playing as many untap engines as you can. Playing Alondo. And just playing, like, activating Alondo, like, 8 to 12 times a turn. And just flooding the board with a bunch of huge shit. That's the whole deck. Now imagine if I tap this creature to untap Alondo to tap him. Then tap this creature to untap Alondo to tap him. Then tap this creature to untap Alondo to tap him. Then untap this creature to untap Alondo to tap him. Then untap this creature to untap Alondo and tap him. I do all that. Then drop Immobilize. Everything untaps, not just Alondo, all those untap engines untap as well. So I get 24 Alondo triggers on my turn for 1 green mana. Insane. Super good card. If you're in a untapped deck, definitely one of the best. Speaking of one of the best, 5th edition with the bestest bird ever. Birds of Paradise, yeah! Love this card. I love this artwork. I love this card. We had a signed one of these going around our playgroup for a while, and I think my friend Nate has it right now still. Yeah, he does. He definitely does. 100%. Yeah, it was really cool. Someone at the store had a signed one, and we were like, whoa. I think we had like a Karn Liberated and a bunch of stuff from New Phyrexia that we were like, can we trade you these? Like, can we get this? Like, and we eventually got our hands on it. It was very cool, very nostalgic, and it was for one of the best Mana Ramp cards ever, like to this day. So, awesome stuff. This is the other card I was talking about when I was talking about Hunting Grounds, and I said there was the other card I got out of the bulk box. This was the card. So we're moving on to Visions with Necromancy. Necromancy is 2 and a black for an enchantment. You may choose to play Necromancy as an instant. If you do, bury it at the end of turn. When you play Necromancy, choose target creature card in any graveyard. When Necromancy comes into play, put that card into play under your control as though it were just played. If Necromancy as if it were just played, and Necromancy becomes a creature enchantment that targets that creature. If Necromancy leaves play, bury the creature. This is some old-ass Reanimator wording. If you look at old Reanimator cards, like Animate Dead, Dance of the Dead, they are worded so dumb and so over the top. This is 2 and a black for an enchantment. When it comes into play, you rip a creature out of any graveyard and put it into play. If this enchantment leaves, that creature leaves. That's it. That's all it does. And for 3, that's really good. And this card was like 90 cents when I got it out of that box. And now it's like $8 to $10. So not a lot, but it's like, I mean, that's like a, 1,000% increase in price. That's pretty crazy. Next, we've got Mirage with Unfulfilled Desires, which has some of the most like beautiful art I've ever seen on a Magic card. This is like, it's so nice to look at. It's warm, it's red. You feel the like warmth and the passion coming off of it. You can literally see, I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it. You can see paint speckles on it, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, what are those paint speckles? I'm like, they're probably supposed to be ash, or maybe it's just like, hey, a human painted this card. Isn't that cool? Either way, Unfulfilled Desires is 1, a black, and a blue for an enchantment. You can pay 1 life, draw a card, and discard a card. I mean, it's pretty good. Like, I was thinking about this in my cousin's Kess deck. He has a Kess deck where I'm like, this seems pretty good, because you literally just, if you're running out of options, you're just like, even if you have no cards in hand, in Kess, that's still good. Because you can be like, pay 5 mana, pay 5 life, draw 5 cards, put all of them in the graveyard. Ooh, I just hit this dope instant or sorcery, this awesome instant or sorcery, this groundbreaking sorcery that could win me the game, this board wipe. It just seems really good in certain decks. If you're in Reanimator, maybe even if you're in like Mimeoplasm or Muldrotha, this seems really good, because if you hit this by accident, you can still play it with Muldrotha. It puts more stuff in your graveyard with Muldrotha. I really like this card. I just think it's a really good outlet to get stuff out of your hand. Up next, we've got Alliances with Nature's Chosen. Nature's Chosen is 1 green for an enchantment aura. You can pay 0 to untap enchant creature, but you can only activate that once a turn and only during your turn. So you get 2 tap triggers out of something. Again, this is in my Alondo deck. Gives me 2 triggers of Alondo for 1 mana. I mean, I'm running 3 drops that give me another trigger of Alondo, so I'll definitely run that. Up next, we've got Homelands with Merchant Scroll. Merchant Scroll. Merchant Scroll is 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Search your library for a blue instant. Oh, it's just an instant. It says interrupt, but it's just an instant. Search your library for a blue instant, reveal that card to all players, and put it into your hand. Shuffle your library. Really good. Again, Kess, Spellslinger decks. This is a more expensive card that's on this list. This is probably one of the few that's pushing expensive. But it's so good. And there wasn't a lot of other cards that I genuinely liked or had any kind of ooh, I really like. This is a really good commander card, in my opinion. You know what I mean? There's cards that are just unbiasedly good commander cards, and a lot of those aren't on this list. I'm trying to. This is my list, you know. So, Merchant Scroll is one of the few that's like a unbiased, very good card. Up next, we've got Chronicles with Tormod's Crypt. Tormod's Crypt is 0 for an artifact. You can tap, sacrifice Tormod's Crypt, remove all cards from target player's graveyard from the game. Again, in Emery, this is insane because it's a 0 drop, and Emery just lets you play an artifact out of your graveyard for free. So if there's multiple graveyard decks at the table, Emery will just shut those down like that. Because it's just I'm going to attack Tormods, blow up your graveyard, tap Emery to cast an artifact from my graveyard, replay Tormods, sack Tormods, get rid of your graveyard. So neither one of you can do anything. Again, very specific, but who cares? It's one of my favorite arts ever. It's one of my favorite pieces of artwork out of Magic ever. And it's one of my favorite cards. I really like Tormod's Crypt a lot. We got Ice Age with Dance of the Dead. Now, Dance of the Dead's a little confusion here. So, you pay 1 and a black, enchant a creature out of a graveyard. That creature comes into play under your control with +1/+1, and it enters tapped, and it doesn't untap during your untap step. You can pay 1 and a black to untap enchanted creature. If Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, so does the creature. Obviously, if the creature's killed, so does Animate Dead. Okay, cool. Up next is 4th edition with Mana Vault. Again, one of the unbiased good cards. I had to put it on here. Mana Vault's nostalgic as hell for me and my playgroup. We all had one of these at one point, and we were all stupid kids and traded them. It's just funny. It's a funny story we tell in our playgroup. It's funny, none of us have this anymore. None of us have Cyclonic Rift. None of us have Mana Vault anymore because we traded them. Which was probably for the better because we have fun playing Magic still. Yeah. Not saying you guys don't, but that's how we've preserved the fun having. But it's a very good card. Obviously, if I could get my hands on one, I would get it. I would 100% want one. There is actually an antique store that's like 20-30 minutes away that has one for $50. Now, the most important thing is, so down here, you can't really see where I'm, I can use my cursor. So down here, where it says tap, there's a little tap icon. This is probably a $50 card. If it has a tap icon, it's white bordered, it has no logo, $50 card. If that tap icon says the word tap, it's like a $150, $200 card, and they have $50 on it. So I'm assuming it's the tap because it's $50, and they're probably just marking it exactly what they looked it up for. But on the off chance that they mislabeled it or something, or they're just like, hey, we'll do 75% off because it's an older card, I'm gonna go back and pick that up. So and I'm going to make a video on it. So expect that at some point. I want to do a video on just like random places I find that have Magic cards and just kind of see what you guys think of them. But anyway, Mana Vault, extremely good. Fallen Empires with High Tide is next. I'm going to lose my voice. High Tide is 1 blue for an instant. Until end of turn, all islands produce an additional island when they're tapped. Yeah, doubles all your islands, which is insane. Clearly, back when this thing was in Standard, it's insane. I don't think this is legal in Modern or Legacy or Modern. I don't think. And if it is, I don't know how it's not seeing play. So I'm pretty sure it's banned. Very good card. Don't really need to explain it. Just a good card. Up next is the Dark with a little bit of a weird one. We've got Elves of Deep Shadow. Elves of Deep Shadow is 1 green for a 1/1. You can tap it, add 1 black to your mana pool, and Elves of Deep Shadow deal 1 damage to you. This ability is played as an interrupt. I love 1 green elves that tap for a mana. They're like my favorite. Lanalore elves, Elves of Deep Shadow, Mystic elves, or Elvish Mystic. And then whatever, Avacyn's Pilgrim? Is that the one that taps for white? Anyway, all those. I really like them. I think they're really powerful. Elves of Deep Shadow is no exception. Next, we've got Legends with Greed. Greed is 3 and a black for an enchantment. You can pay 1 black to draw an extra card this turn and gain 2 life. This is old wording. You pay 1 black, draw a card, lose 2 life. Really good. If you have any extra mana at the end of players' turns, just draw a bunch of cards. Next, we've got Revised Edition with Clone. We are narrowing the final, I think, 6 cards here, guys. So we've got Revised Edition with Clone. Clone is a classic. It's one of my favorite Magic cards ever made. I remember when I got my first Clone, I thought it was insane. I'm like, this is every card, which it wasn't. The second I tried to target something and copy it, it wasn't. But that's okay. Super good. 3 and a blue, copies a creature in play. Extremely good. Up next, we've got Antiquities with Ashnod's Altar. Ashnod's Altar is 3 for an artifact. Sorry, this is in another language. You can sacrifice a creature to add 2 colorless to your mana pool. Extremely powerful. Arabian Nights is next with John Doerr's Saddlebags. 2 colorless for an artifact. You can pay 3 to untap a creature. You don't even have to tap it. You can do that as many times as you have the mana for. Which, again, if you're an untapped deck, it's exactly what you need. Up next is Animate Dead. This is another enchant creature in any graveyard. That creature comes into play with a -1/-0 counter. And if this enchantment leaves, so does the creature. 2 mana to bring back any creature. Super good. Then we got Beta with Wrath of God. One of the best board wipes ever made. 2 and 2 white to destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. Just one of the best board wipes ever made. And then finally, we have Alpha. The first set of Magic with my favorite removal spell of all time. Probably already know what it is. It has like 146 printings. Swords to Plowshare. One of my favorite cards of all time. If not my favorite card of all time. 1 white for an instant. Remove target creature from the game. Its owner gains life equal to its power. Sure. And life does not matter. Which makes this better than Path to Exile, in my opinion. And it's just insane. 1 white to remove something. I really don't have to explain it. It's insane. It's an extremely good card. One of my favorite cards in all of Magic, clearly. If you guys enjoyed this live stream, please leave a like, share, subscribe. I will be chopping down this live stream and uploading it as a video, the mess that it was in its entirety. So if you could please watch that and subscribe and share, that'd be great. I'm trying to hit the 4,000 watch hours on YouTube. It's kind of a bitch to hit because they don't count certain videos that fall under a certain amount of time, which are a lot of mine. So I'm trying to upload a little bit longer content, and if you guys could engage with that longer content, that would help me out a ton. I always appreciate that shit. If you enjoyed the video, do all that stuff. If you enjoyed the live stream, drop a comment. I will see you guys later. Go play some Magic, and yeah, have a good one, guys.